You're listening to Good Morning with Ashley, where we will journey through finding the good in life's transitions. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me again for another episode of the Good Morning Podcast. As always, before we get started, I just want to encourage you to go ahead, if you're watching, go ahead and subscribe and like our YouTube channel. And also, if you are listening, go ahead and head to ashleypopeonline.com and subscribe and download the episodes so far, okay? Today, I am so honored. I'm honored, y'all. First of all, I'm fangirling a whole lot because we have J.Wil or Jermaine Wilson, however, Jermaine James, however you know him. He is the GOAT right now with these podcasts going with Inspired God's People. Yeah. And so I am so honored that he joined me today. Can you please introduce yourself, talk about yourself? Thank you again for coming.
Thanks for having me, for real. You know what I'm saying? I'm honored to be here. Jermaine James, friends call me J.Wil. Maybe a couple people that don't like me call me J.Wil too. But no, I'm a husband. Shout out to my wife, Tiffany.
Hey, Tiffany.
Businessman, senior national account manager for a Fortune 50 organization, and a podcaster, creator, founder, and host of Inspire God's People, the podcast where we balance faith and business to guide you to your purpose. So we do a lot of faith and business content, interview a lot of people with some inspiring stories, and break down faith and business principles. So I'm excited to be here, you know what I'm saying, on a little cross podcast action. So definitely looking forward to this conversation.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming. He was also a rapper. That's my fan part coming in. He was rapping at one point, and I had to spit some lyrics before the show to show him that I was a fan. So thank you again for coming. We are talking about self-discipline today. Y'all, I don't know if this episode is for y'all or for me, okay? But we are going to have a very necessary conversation with Jay here because it is so pivotal to grasp the concept of being disciplined. For sure. But it's also one of those things that's like extremely hard and it's easier said than done.
100%.
Yeah. So just to tell you, if you don't know what self-discipline is, it is the ability to control one's weaknesses. And so I personally struggle in this area. Not with all things. I think discipline, it's not always just fully across the board. Sometimes It's just certain things, again, your weaknesses, things that you are weak to, that you really struggle with being able to have some control over those things. And so this episode, I want to see what we can do to help y'all and help me. And so I had to bring him on because
help us out.
Yes, because I know that this is something, like you said, me and you talked yesterday, and this is something too that you're trying to learn how to even balance with yourself. So
for sure.
What do you think, as far as self-discipline as a whole, right now?
I mean, for me, everything is a process. Mm-hmm. That's probably the first thing. I think a lot of times people hear stuff and they just want it to be like instantaneous. Yeah. So I'm a believer, even as people listening to this, this can literally change your life.
Absolutely.
But if you're expecting it to change your life overnight, then that's actually probably showcasing a lack of discipline, because laziness and wanting to do things quick is because you don't have discipline. So for me, the way I overall see discipline is it's the process of being able to be consistent and do something again. So you ever have something where you do it one time, working out? I'll say we're working out because this is an area that I need help in.
Yes.
So it's I can work out and I can go 2 months and be right on track. But the moment my schedule or something gets off, I lose discipline.
Absolutely.
And then I'm starting over again. So discipline is that ability to endure that gap of time when you probably want to quit.
Yeah, I agree. There's a scripture that I go to as it relates to discipline to try and keep my head on straight.
Right.
And it's Proverbs 25 and 28, the New Living Translation. And it just says, a person without self-control is like a city with broken down walls. So
Man.
it's like you
That's wild.
you have no limits.
Stuff in, stuff
Stuff
out.
in, stuff out. Like,
Ooh,
it's
that's
just
nasty.
you have no limits, you have no boundaries as it relates to things that or the maximum of as far as you'll go without having any type of control.
Man.
And so I have been saying this to myself, as it relates to what I am trying to do personally. So to you, in your opinion, what does a disciplined life look like?
All right, so stuff like this scripture makes me think about in the definition, right? Like, what's interesting about the definition of discipline is that it's specific to the time of weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the first thing I tell myself is like, oh, you gonna get weak. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times we try to lie to ourselves or make ourselves feel like we are above something.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, you gonna get weak, bro.
You're gonna get weak.
So when I enter something, I have realistic expectations, regardless of what it is, whether it's marriage, business, any relationship. My whole mindset is like, there's gonna come a time in this where you're gonna be challenged.
Right.
And where you need to be ready for is to endure that. Now, I have kind of a process that I go through. It starts with learning. So it's like, first I try to learn something. So like, learning about discipline. What is discipline? What does it mean? Maybe specific to what I'm doing. And then I try to plan for that. So it's like I go through this whole process, learn, plan, do, become, be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
I like that.
When you get to the become stage, like just like the short version of this, when you are becoming something is when the discipline is typically necessary. So it's like, if you wanted to save $1,000, it's like you save 100, you save 200. Discipline kicks in when you save 500 because that's more than that's closer to the end. You halfway there, but you ain't made it yet.
Right.
And ultimately for me, like what I warn myself from is like, if you don't have discipline, you probably gonna ruin whatever you wasted time creating if you was gonna not be disciplined.
So like with me, with this podcast, when I finished the first season of Good Morning, I celebrated so hard.
Right.
Because it was the first thing that I can really say that I was disciplined with, for real.
Yeah.
And I'm 32. I think I was 30. I was 31 when I started. Mm-hmm. I'm 32 years old, and I have a habit of starting things and not necessarily finishing them.
Interesting.
And so my whole thing was, I have to do right by this. First of all, because I knew that this was something that was very much God-given.
Right.
And if he gave me this, I have a responsibility. And so my responsibility is to fulfill what it is that he gave me and complete it. And so to be on season 4, I'm literally like mind blown because I'm like, I'm on season 4. Not just on season 4, but constantly enhancing what it is that I'm doing. This is my baby right now. And so I had to start looking at everything in my life like my podcast.
I feel it.
I'm proud of it, and I want it to be good. I want it to be successful. I should feel the same way about drinking water.
Yeah.
I should feel the same way about making my bed every day. This is my bed.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah,
I get to sleep here. I should feel the same way about even the smallest things because I am creating discipline. And so my grandmother, grandmothers have a way of saying things. My grandma used to say, if you lazy, you nasty.
I love it.
And so I feel like not being disciplined is also somewhat being lazy.
Oh, 100%.
And if you're lazy, if you start looking around in different aspects of your life, you'll see the nastiness in it. It may not 100%. Be a actual mess like trash or garbage, but even if things are discombobulated all the time, or you can't figure out how to finish accomplishing something, it is because you have somewhere in that process dropped the ball and become lazy, as far as that's concerned. So I had to watch myself even when I was in school because naturally I understood everything. I got it. I was one of those people that was just like this. But the moment I became too lazy, I saw a drop in my grades. Not because I didn't understand, not because I didn't know what I was doing, but because I literally let myself say, I can do that. I do my homework. It's only going to take me 10 minutes. And those 10-minute assignments stopped taking 10 minutes. So, I had to, try to learn some discipline. So I would say, what do you think are like some signs of lacking discipline? Like I said, if you lazy, you nasty. So that's a sign too. Being lazy is lacking discipline.
I'm gonna be real. Like it's simple to me. If you not where you want to be in life, you probably lack discipline in some area. So like that's the first thing. So and like this is such a layered topic. It's a good topic, but like so many of us, we are focused on the wrong thing. Yeah. Like, so I'll give you an example. Let's say if I didn't have a podcast yet and I come in here and, you got this dope studio you recording out of, it looked good. The booking process was good. Now what most people tend to do is look at the results of something.
Absolutely.
And that's what they chasing. So if I have no idea what it takes to do a podcast, that's why I say my process starts with learning. Before I jump into stuff, I learn about it. Because that's going to filter out whether I really want it. So if I came in here and based having a podcast on all this dope stuff and this dope experience, then I'm going to start a podcast out of emotion.
Yes.
But then what happens is I get in it and I'm like, ooh, like, oh, this takes this. I don't want to do this. So to me, whenever I don't want to learn about something, I know that I'm not disciplined because that filters it out.
That's good. That's good. I used to teach. And one of the things that I did with my students was called gradual release. So it was a I do, we do, you do.
Okay.
And so I would do it first. We would do it together. And then you would do it on your own.
Oh, that's dope.
And so by the time we got to the you do, they were solid because it was no longer just I'm making you do it. It was I have the concept.
You've been through it.
I've been through it. Yeah. Yes, I've learned, like you said. Exactly. And so I started implementing that into my own life. So like you've been saying, learning about something first, I had to, that's why we were talking about self-discipline. I had to literally go to the drawing board with myself. I saw some things happening, and I'm going to talk about it later on. When we get down the line to that just say no portion, because listen, that's the hard part. But I had to literally learn how to remove myself from certain things so that discipline could interfere.
I love it.
Yeah. And so that's hard.
Yeah. You know what? It's a scripture. I should know this by heart where it is, but it says, there's a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof is death. And the reason that this concept of like you said, stepping back and taking inventory is ultimately what you're doing. Absolutely. Like Jesus told the disciples, before you follow me, count up the cost. And so when I talk about learning, it's really that. What you're saying is before you jump into something, just because you want some results or something that is fantasy driven, to actually understand what you're getting yourself into is biblical. So again, if I want to start a podcast or a business, I should really learn about it. And then once you learn about it, that's why I say it's a process. That's that first level of okay, because there's levels to discipline. It takes discipline to learn. Oh, you know what? Oh man, I read 3 books about real estate. So it's that's a level of discipline. It's now you've learned. Now do you want to enter this after you've learned about it? Because it's just like a relationship. You can meet somebody, regardless of the type of relationship, it could just be a friendship type situation. I've met people as friends, and maybe the first day I was like, yeah, this could be a dope friend. And then you start learning about them, you no, this not gonna work. But it's now you deeper in the friendship, right? Where if you would have just assessed it properly before you jumped into it.
Crazy. We talked about that last week. Yeah.
I did listen to some of that. So
thank you.
I might be stealing something that I heard Bree say or something.
Go right ahead.
Y'all was talking good.
Thank you. So, I like what you said about knowing if it's something that you can be or something that you're disciplining based off of you wanting to do it based on emotion. And so I think that this is a good segue into discipline versus motivation.
Yeah.
Because they are 2 very different things.
All day.
People will say they go hand in hand. I get it. And to an extent, maybe so.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a quote. I don't know who said it, but it just says that you won't always be motivated. That's why you have to be disciplined.
I love that.
I have to find out who's I meant to do
Yeah,
that.
I don't think I know who said that, but that's a dope
you
quote.
know, you won't always be motivated. That's why you have to be disciplined. So it's a difference. Like you said, I'm motivated to get up and go to work in the morning. There's an incentive for me to get up
right.
and go to work. You know, because I know if I keep going bi-weekly, I'm going to get that check.
Exactly.
I'm going to keep them benefits. I'm going to be able to pay my bills and do what I need to do. There's incentive behind doing this. So I won't necessarily say I'm disciplined to get up and go to work, but I'm motivated to do so. Now, I love my job, so it's nothing like that.
Right,
but
I
it's
feel what
like
you're saying.
motivated to go because I know that there is something coming behind my hard work.
Yeah.
With discipline, our results are not always so quick, you know.
100%.
I go to the gym today. In 2 weeks, I may not have lost any weight.
Exactly.
Because my motivation behind working out, there's so much more to losing weight than just working out. You also have to be disciplined in your eating. So if I'm not disciplined in my eating, but I'm disciplined or motivated to go to the gym,
right.
Then I'm not going to see the results that I desire to see. So to me, like I wrote down here, I said motivation is the process that initiates and guides you to maintain goals. Yeah. So I think that we set a goal and be like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get there. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be. But if we don't have that motivation, after a while, we'll be like, I'll do it. I'll get there. I'll do that. You know, but when you're disciplined, even when you're not motivated, you're going to keep going uphill. Yeah. You know, no matter how you ain't seen no results yet, all this stuff, you know at the end of the day that what I am doing is going to pay off, essentially.
Yeah, that's dope because, again, like tying it back to where I said, if I start a podcast because I'm looking at your results, right, then I'm already losing because those results may not exist for me in reality.
Right.
And so I think so many times like people have unrealistic expectations. And let's be real, part of it is because the people experiencing the results ain't being real about it.
Correct.
So it's like people walking around like something came so easy for them, or they skipping all the parts of the movie when they was broke down, you know what I'm saying, and crying in the corner and didn't see the results. And we selling people something like, hey, just do this and you could do that. And then what happens is when people get in it, like you saying, it's like, yo, I went to the gym, bro. Like it didn't happen in 2 weeks.
Yes.
So now what? So no, I think motivation is needed because sometimes, like you said, like motivation might get you started. It might be a catalyst.
Right.
Because if you don't have motivation and ambition, you might just be walking around like whatever. But then you have to understand motivation isn't enough to get you to the finish line. Unless the only thing I can say is like you have to find a way to live motivated and to remain motivated.
That's good.
And maybe listening to podcasts like this is a way that you do that, where it's like, all right, because I know I get weak, I need to listen to the Good Morning podcast again and again. Like hearing one podcast might be like, oh, Ashley's dope. That was cool. But it's like, no, like this content is to help you to continue to grow and to continue to stay motivated. So I often tell people, find a way to change the input so that you can get a new output. It's like you can't be talking about discipline and motivation or consistency today and then turn this podcast off and go listen to something that's completely the opposite and expect to have like results. And that's just life, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So do you feel like, and I know what your answer is going to be, but do you feel like one is more powerful than the other?
I really don't all the way. I think I look at so much stuff as case by case. And the reason is because we are born and raised with different temperaments. So like I even see this in my nephews and nieces and kids. And I mean, obviously some of my peers too, where it's like my brothers and sisters, we grew up in the same house. We don't all have the same temperament. So like I've seen growing up in the inner city, for instance, make some people want to become like the president right? They want to become something like to come and help the community.
Right.
And then I've seen it turn the same people who grew up in the same situation into somebody who grows up and they become a part of the crime or whatever is going on, right? So for me, when I look at motivation versus discipline, I think it depends on the person. If I know people who lack motivation and it's like, man, I don't know what to do to get you started. So you can't even talk discipline to somebody who's not motivated. So it is important to get that jump start. But I think if you're talking about what's going to take you to the finish line, like discipline would definitely be more important in that regard to, because discipline is about, again, what you do when you're weak. If you motivated, you're not really weak. When that wear off, it's like a Tylenol wearing off and the headache's still there. It's like, what you gonna do now?
Right. So do you think, like for instance, have you ever had to tell a friend you're not disciplined?
Oh, I done told the friends a lot of stuff. I'm the that's probably the more challenging thing about when people really know me is because I take this stuff serious. Like I don't go around talking about stuff that isn't real to me. Now, that doesn't mean I have it all figured out. When I say it's serious and real to me, I mean, when I leave here, I'm probably going to be listening to an audiobook on the way home and then get back and watch some YouTube about something and then go to the studio and record something like a branch off this. So for me, it's like if you are around me, like you either going to be on the same thing or I'm going to get on your nerves because I'm the friend that if you around me and you not living up to that
standard,
yeah, you gonna constantly hear it. So I would say that, yeah, I'm probably more known personally for like, okay, here he comes.
Yeah, I love the example that you use with the podcast because, like you said, people don't know what it really takes.
It's a grind.
Listen. And like I said, this was definitely God given. When he gave it to me, I knew nothing about podcasts. But I believe that if this was something that he gave me, that he would provide me with the knowledge to be able to do it. However, I know that I also had a part to play in that.
Yeah.
So I had to do the research. So I get a lot of people who be like, I'm ready to start a podcast, so what I got to do? And I'm like, do the research. But people like to come to you. You are the research.
It's disrespectful, actually. People don't realize that, but it's actually low-key disrespectful.
And I'm not talking about, like helping out people who are, grinding to do it, but I'm talking about people who like have no clue. And you just, like you said, you see the glamorous side, but you don't know the grind, literally, that it takes to make it happen for real. And so emotion has driven them to the point of wanting something because it's a platform. And I think that people, especially these days, are striving for a platform.
Yeah.
But even having a platform takes discipline because you have to be able to be trusted with the platform that you have.
And it's such a unique thing to talk about because obviously when you're doing this type of stuff, like people reach out to me all the time. But to your point, it's not like you don't want to help people. But I also think I talk about these type of things where it's opportunities to like, again, learning is important. So one of the things I tell people is like, let's just use something that's common, like the NBA, basketball, right? I would seem out of my mind if I just hit up LeBron James, like, how do you play for the Lakers? It would be like, wait a minute. Like, so you think, like, I haven't hooped in a couple years. Like, so, and I'm probably not that good no more. And obviously wasn't good enough to make the Lakers when I was good. So it's like, it's disrespectful to his craft. So that's why I start with the learning, because what I always tell people is like when people ask me things, I will guide them on what to learn and what to research. So I'll tell you what book to read, but I'm not going to give you the answers to the test. Now, here's the thing people don't realize. If you read the book, if you prove that you want to learn, then now we can walk that path together. That's how networking works in business.
Yeah.
You network with people who are not necessarily at your level, but people who either are at your level, beyond your level, or striving to get there. And most people just want you to tell them what to do. And unfortunately, none of us can do that because I can't prepare you for the journey you're going to be on in a podcast just by telling you to go buy a microphone. Hey, listen, I don't know who somebody's favorite artist is, but your favorite artist, like when they do a concert, they got the same keyboards on stage that I could go buy from Guitar Center today.
Correct. Yes, they do.
But we not making the same music.
No.
If I don't play keys like that. You get what I'm saying? It's like this same microphone right here, my brother Darius can come sing and it sounds amazing. Well, if I sing right now, I'm not Darius. So it's like, hey, bro, I could tell you how to start a podcast, but until you have something to give and like have some substance behind it, it's not gonna matter.
And creating that discipline.
Yeah.
But also creating consistency.
Yeah.
Being consistent. So that's a huge factor in being disciplined. So when I was in high school, I went to a charter school, and at the time he was the dean of students. And he used to say, what does practice make? And we would say perfect. And he was like, no. Practice makes routine. Yeah. And so it's like if you keep doing or trying to perfect the same thing over and over and over again, you're going to end up being perfect. And this is a routine. This is a part of your life. It's an established point in your life. Shout out to Dr. Hayward. Shout out to Dr. Hayward. Okay. Because lifestyle. Listen, it is a lifestyle. And so how would you say that being consistent, plays in trying to live a disciplined life?
All right. So to me, I explain it as like direction is more important than speed. So a lot of people, again, when you're looking at results, you're trying to get something quick.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, you'll have people like, I tell people, I don't look at things people have because that is just a result of either good decisions or bad decisions. Mm-hmm. So it's like if somebody has an amazing car, to me, that just means you spend a lot of money. Now, I don't know if you can afford the car or not. I don't know, like, what you got saved, whatever. So it could be a good situation or a bad situation. Mm-hmm. Speed is, hey, I want a nice car like you today. Direction is, all right, let me learn about cars, horrible investments. So probably the last thing I need to buy. But okay, cool. Let me also learn about interest rates and credit and things like that. So
yeah, that's good.
I would rather walk slowly in a particular direction than to get there quickly. And so to me, consistency is about direction. And it's about saying, it doesn't matter if it takes me 2 years to create the level of what I want to do. Mm-hmm. If I'm willing to take one step every day for 2 years to get there. Absolutely. And that's where the discipline, like consistency takes discipline, because I can't be consistent if I'm not disciplined. Mm-hmm. Because again, consistency is like continually doing it. Well, what happens is there's going to be that gap of weakness. Can you be disciplined during that time? If you can, you create consistency. Yeah. And then what ends up happening is time shrinks when you go in the right direction for a long time. Mm. So it's like, 2 years sounds like a long time until you do something and you like, that was 2 years ago.
Because that time moves
very fast.
Very fast.
Yeah. So I think consistency is beyond important. And again, for me, it's just about direction, like personal goals and things that I'm doing. It's always about direction. Things that I've done is about direction and consistency. And I always say, like, if I'm honestly, like, even most of the people who follow my content or who even know me is because it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be here, Lord willing. 5 years from now, it's going to be like, I'm going to be on the same thing. Like, and I think sometimes when you're looking at other people's results, mm-hmm. you're almost out of your mind because you're going from, like, I can be here today and be like, I like what Ashley doing. And then go somewhere else tomorrow and they doing something totally different. I'm like, mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah, trying to keep up, make a decision.
Yeah, so it's like you got to decide what you want to do and then go in that direction. But if you don't choose a direction, you're just going to be going in circles.
Mm-hmm. So it's consistency for me, and I have to take it to, because I'm pretty transparent with what I'm dealing with right now. And so my thing has been trying to be disciplined with my weight, right? And so I love sleep. Sleep is amazing. It's great. It's my favorite thing. I love.
That is so funny.
I love sleep.
My wife likes sleep.
Yes.
I don't like sleep. That's so weird.
Oh, listen. I love sleep. And so I have to break that sleep, wanting to sleep, to be consistent at the gym. Here's why. I know that after working all day long, the chances of me going home, changing clothes, or even having a gym bag in my car and driving to the gym instead of driving home may not work out for me. But if I interrupt something that I love to be consistent, I'm training myself to be disciplined.
Yeah. That's dope too. And I think what's dope about what you're saying is like, I tell people, know thyself. Mm-hmm. So it's like, again, that's why it's so important to learn. Like when I talk about learn, it's like learn yourself. Like you saying, it's like, all right, Jay, what makes you move? Like what bothers you? What makes you feel great? And when you know yourself and you can be real about those weaknesses, because you are going to get weak, I'm going to get weak, then you can create that discipline like you're saying. And then what ends up happening is you produce results over time that then those serve as added motivation, and you start building on some things. But you have to start somewhere, and you got to know yourself. So I think it's dope that you like, all right, I love sleep. Like, that's a weakness. Yeah, but you got to get through it. You know, one of the things about a disciplined lifestyle is, and it's just something I've gathered over time, is like the reality of it is the average person is not willing to do what it takes to get what they want. I never met a person that don't want nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the difference between the people who get it and the people that don't is that, like, I could tell you, even for myself, just going through I've been in corporate America 15 years. Going through the last 15 years, starting off extremely entry level, like the lowest you could go in the organization. As I've made it through different levels climbing the corporate ladder, it's like, oh, okay, this takes a lot. Like the more responsibility you get, you have to be willing to carry that level of weight and responsibility. And most people, I've seen people that be like, I'm good.
Yeah, like I look at discipline in levels and consistency in levels. So like I've had people say, get a trainer. And my whole thing is I'm trying to work on being consistent enough to get up and go to the gym. Me getting a trainer right now prematurely is not necessarily something that I think is smart.
Sounds good.
It sounds great.
But
I could potentially be wasting money because I'm going to be canceling sessions because I haven't started building a routine or creating that discipline and that consistency to even get up and go to the gym. So how am I going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and drive across town to go and meet with a trainer if I can't get up and 5 minutes up the street is a Planet Fitness? Why would I do that? You know?
I agree.
So I think sometimes our eyes are bigger than what's inside of us.
Yeah.
So we see something that we want. We see something that we want to do, but do we have the discipline for it to be more than just a vision?
I agree. And that's why motivation is tricky, right? Because motivation, I can motivate you to get a trainer, right? But again, that motivation is temporary. And then that reality is what you're saying. Like, that's why for me, it's like, look, I wouldn't care if you went in the gym and took 2 steps on the Stairmaster. Do it every day for a year. Something good gonna happen.
Yeah.
And that might be more powerful than you just emotionally going to hire a trainer. I'm not saying don't hire a trainer to nobody, but it's if it's not the right thing for you, I totally agree with that. Like, you have to be realistic with your expectations of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and timing is everything.
Yeah.
I feel like timing is everything when you talk about being self-disciplined. So with that, I think that it is really good to get to this portion of the just say no. I think this is my favorite part because, first of all, you don't know this, but I was not talking about, I had a completely different topic that I wanted to do with you.
Okay.
But something happened to me last week where I said, oh, no, I have to figure out how to make some changes within myself. And I was thinking about it, but not thinking about the podcast. But then, of course, I've heard, listen to some of your podcasts, and I said, oh, topic swap.
Yeah,
we going another route, right? So just say no to me is about embracing temporary dissatisfaction. So for me, I got to tell on myself. I had to put myself on punishment this past weekend. Like, I had to go back to being like 12 because I'll start here. I'm a full-blown advocate for mental health, right? Mm-hmm. So my therapist in March moved, and so I've had to find a different therapist. Well, I haven't had any luck yet, so I haven't been to therapy. So to me, I do have a way of processing things mentally, but sometimes I need that advocate. I need that extra help, right? So I felt myself not necessarily spiraling, but getting off course as it relates to me. And so I had to take all the pleasurable things away from myself this weekend. And it's like the moment that I decided to do that, I got invitation after invitation after invitation to go outside.
Yeah.
Right? I had said, I'm staying in this weekend. I'm staying in because I needed to clean up. I needed to map out content for this week. I needed to make sure I was going to be good for my week. And the only way that I was going to be successful in doing that was by saying no and embracing that temporary dissatisfaction. Now, it rains pretty much every day. It has been, right?
Yeah.
I said, it would not rain this weekend. The sun's shining very brightly when I have to be in the house. But I was determined to honor what I said I was going to do. I'm trying to create that discipline. So I reorganized my closet. I washed a bunch of clothes. I did everything that I had been putting off to go and hang out or do whatever and all that different stuff. I had put all of that off to go and enjoy myself. And so there I had interfered with my discipline. And so I needed to find a way to reroute myself.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that takes saying no. Literally, when I say some fun stuff, I mean fun stuff. And I had to say, well, nah, I can't do it this weekend, all that different stuff. And it hurt me. But when I went to bed on Sunday night and everything that I wanted to accomplish during the weekend was done, it was better than going out.
Always.
It was so much better. I felt so fulfilled in being able to say no to create or reroute myself to being disciplined in certain things. So like 2020, the pandemic, still pandemic. Yeah, still the pandemic.
Right.
But 2020, when everything first hit, people hated quarantine. I was not people. I loved quarantine. And 2020 was the year that I was the most disciplined that I had ever been. But I had to ask myself, why is that? And the reason why is because I had zero distractions. I couldn't go nowhere. I couldn't go hang out. Couldn't go to the restaurant and go skating and all, whatever it was that I enjoyed doing, I could not do because it was not safe. So I had found a way to become more disciplined in everything that I was doing. I thought I was OCD because I was cleaning up my room every day, but there was literally nothing else to do. I had established a routine. Literally, I had a routine. I got up, did whatever I needed to do, cook breakfast, cook lunch, cook dinner. Like, I was that person. I was so disciplined. I was the smallest I had ever been because what else do I have to do? Nothing,
Right,
but go take a walk and all that different stuff. And so I've had to, in the last couple of weeks, try to find a way to get that same 2020 discipline with all of the distractions now being available. And that's been hard for me.
Yeah. You said a lot of good things. I'm trying to find the right way to say this because, like, being a guest, I don't want to offend anybody.
Say what you need to say.
But like, the only reason I'm always give disclaimers with this because I've said this to some of my friends and then I had to like explain it to them, like, literally, like, most people are average. Mm-hmm. That's what average really is. The average person does this. It's a group of people is what most of them would do, right?
Absolutely.
So that's a harsh reality that most people are average. Mm. So for me, no is to create boundaries because I know that most people who approach me are average and they also have average thinking. So I made up in my mind 10 years ago, like everything that I'm doing now, that's why I talk about processes. Like, it's a building block. I've been doing what I've been doing now for 10 years. So it's like 10 years ago when I made up my mind that I did not want to be average, I started a journey of changing the rules. Because again, average is average. So I have to decide I'm either going to live in the average world or I'm going to create something different.
Okay.
If I'm going to create something different, it means just based on percentages, now I am not going to be like most people. I'm not going to think like most people. So if that's the case, I have to create the boundaries. It's like living in the jungle. The lions are trying to kill you.
Yeah.
If you realize that, hey, most of the animals out here want to kill me, I have to put up some fences and things to protect myself. So not that I think people are purposely trying to do that, but I'll give a literal example just because it was, years ago now. 10 years ago, literally 2012, I remember, and we talking about the impact of saying no. I remember I decided like, I need to learn about real estate. Like I didn't know how to buy a house. Like we were apartment hopping in the beginning of our marriage, and I was like, I'm gonna get a crib. And we went right down the Chase building and got denied. And George was the mortgage guy name, and he handed me the envelope and was like, bro, you're not getting no house, and with your credit, it's probably gonna take you a couple years. Mm-hmm. That was the moment. I remember standing there. I feel like I was in a movie. I told my wife, never again. That was the moment I decided that I was going to be above average. And so over the next year and a half, I had these steps of like money we needed to save. We had never had money. I had never had $1,000 saved up. Like what? Like I spend all my money. What you mean having extra money? Mm-hmm. So when I started creating these new boundaries of like, we no longer live check to check. We no longer are going to spend all our money. Of course, just like you with people calling you and all that, I remember our family was going to take a trip. And it was like a weekend trip in a cabin, and it was going to cost a certain amount of money. Now we're talking about discipline, right? Mm-hmm. We had started having more money than we had ever had. So now this is when your discipline gets tested.
It's going to get tested, absolutely.
My wife, and this is, let me be careful how you say this, because this ain't no shade to my wife. It's just what happened. Mm-hmm. She really wanted to go on this trip. And her, like, the family, everybody wanted to go. And I was like, based on what we said we're doing, no, right? Long story short, I don't know if it was a week, a month later. It was shortly after that. I had found a place where we could build a house. And I remember we went, this was after I said no, because I didn't want to touch the money. We went, we looked at this place. I talked to this lady. And I remember she was like, to build on this land, we like, what do it cost? Just to start it, not to like buy it, but just to start it. Mm-hmm. She was like, well, you need a $5,000 deposit. At that point, we literally, not one penny more, not one penny less, we had $5,000.
Wow.
And 10 years ago, we built our first house. We sold that years ago. But my point is, I always go back to that as like, if I had not had the discipline to say no, then I would have been in that meeting and she would have been saying 5,000 and I would have been saying, well, we got 3,000 because we went to a cabin. Now how am I gonna get this $2,000?
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
And that single moment literally changed my life. Literally. Like, I mean, there are so many domino effects from that single moment, buying that property, selling that property, going to, like, it was just a domino effect from there.
So because we don't know what doors our no will open potentially moving forward. And so first of all, that's really good. I'm very motivated. I was like in my head mentally taking notes. But I love that. It's a perfect example of the reward of saying no. Most people feel like saying no is such a bad thing. But no is not bad.
It's not bad at all.
A good no will save your life.
Literally.
Yeah.
Save your life.
It'll save
Change
your life. It will.
For real.
And so there's a scripture, another one that I love. It says in Hebrews 12:11 NLT version, no discipline is enjoyable while it's happening. It's painful. But afterward, there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way.
Man, the first line got me.
Yeah. No discipline is enjoyable while it's happening. And it's not. Discipline, it is not glamorous. It honestly can suck, at first. Like, you're just like, this is horrible, because, again, we are people who want instant gratification. But this is not one of those things that just offers that all the time.
Nah, and man, like you saying no is tough. It's not fun. Like
Yeah.
that whole idea of like, that temporary dissatisfaction of like, man, we can't go to the cabin. Like what we don't get even in the story that I just told is like, and again, I just don't remember the time frame, but like whatever that week, month, whatever that time was between me saying no to the cabin and us finding where we were going to build our first house, that in between time is rough.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I have so many experiences with this type of stuff, but like if my wife was here, she could tell you. Like for me, I'm the type of person, I will take leaps of faith. Once I really believe something, like I will take a leap of faith without knowing where I'm going to land.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, I don't think you can get anywhere in life without being willing to endure the period of time where your decision seems wrong.
Yes.
Like there will be a period of time, no matter what you start a business, there will come a time where you like, I think I'm crazy.
Yeah, I shouldn't have did
like, this was stupid. Mm-hmm. But if you can endure that time and just get to the other side of it, then every door that God starts opening, you like, ooh, like I almost quit, I almost went to a cabin.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and I feel like it's always right there. It's literally right at that moment. On the other side of that is like breakthrough. And I hate when I see people give up in that moment. Because I'm like, don't do it. Like, you're right there. Just stay disciplined. Stay consistent. Stay motivated.
Yeah.
All those things that you need to get on the other side. And sometimes that's when you just literally do not have it. You don't have it.
You don't.
But I think also it's good to surround yourself with people that do. Because people who do have discipline and they love you, they're going to try to correct you to a point of saying, I'm not going to let you do this.
100%. That's how you raise your standard from being average to above average.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, none of us do it on our own. Like, we need that other group of people that's like, okay, like I found mentors and other people that were way beyond where I was. And then I could sit in those sessions with those people and be a sponge and learn.
Yeah.
And not, act like I know, everything. And I think our generation of people right now, one of the challenges is everyone wants to be an expert all the time. Everyone wants to be a teacher. So I think part of being disciplined too, and part of what we're talking about is you got to know when to be the student. Yes. Like I know when I'm a student. When I'm in student mode, I'm like, oh, I walk in the room, certain mentors, certain people, I'm like, yep, I'm not there yet. I need to just be quiet and listen.
Yes, I'm going to just be quiet. And I say it all the time, just because you painted one room doesn't make you a painter.
That's facts.
It does not.
That's facts.
But what makes somebody a painter is the consistency, the discipline, the craft, the knowledge, the steps that they've gone through to become good at what they do. They structure themselves to have a disciplined life. And you need discipline to even know how to do the basic things such as painting.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing like when you're teaching a child how to write their name. Being that disciplined with like, okay, nope, that's not an A, that's an O, going back, because even those very small things lead to something bigger, good handwriting, penmanship, being able to read, it's more than just writing a letter. A letter is one piece.
Facts.
But those letters form words and those words form books. And, and so it's like those books form knowledge. Everything is a step, literally.
Yeah.
And that's how we have to look at becoming disciplined. It's nothing. Nothing is too small to become disciplined. Nothing.
Everything, like I have a little saying, like everything matters. Mm-hmm. And so, and the reality is, again, if you want to be above average, like for me, it was like whenever God has taken me to a new level, it's almost like, I remember this time in 8th grade, I got into a fight. This was my last fight with this kid. And he wanted to fight. I didn't want to fight. He was way bigger than me. But we fought, and I won the fight. But he caught me one time. And this was a big boy. And when he caught me, it felt like I ran into a wall.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think the point I'm making is like, there will be times where we get that feeling of like, things hit you and you got to be willing to endure and go through that to get to where you're going. But the reality of it is, if you're a person that's always going to quit everything, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to be average. And that's what I've accepted is that these are personal decisions that people make. And if you want to get to the next level, sometimes, like every time I get to a next level, it's like first I feel like I ran into a wall, and then I'm like, okay, then I adapt to that level. Yeah. And you got to understand where you at and where you need to grow. And when you be real with yourself, like you said with yourself about your weight loss journey, when you're real with yourself, you can adapt. But if I'm walking around, you know, again, in Romans, you know, the Bible don't think too highly of yourself. This is all scripture. So we should not think too highly of ourselves, or we are definitely going to fall.
Absolutely. Wow. I feel motivated.
That's what's up.
To become even more disciplined after this conversation. Like I said, I think that this was not only for the audience, but also for me. For sure, I learned some things, and there are some things that I'm going to take that you said, and even some things that, you know, God gave me while we were talking that I'm going to implement in my own life, because discipline, that step, can stop you from being just the average person.
Yep.
And I don't want to be average.
I'm
gonna hold on to that. I don't want to be the average person. I never thought about it like that, but I do not want to be the average person. I want to be better than that. And so I'm going to try to create a life. I'm going to create a life of discipline so that I can be above that average that, you know, people are right now. And so I think it takes steps. I think, like I said, it takes discipline. It takes that motivation. It takes consistency. And it takes listening to stuff like the Good Morning Podcast.
For sure.
Yeah, because it is helpful. So I want to thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad that you accepted the invitation to come on the Good Morning Podcast, and that you provided such knowledge. I knew when this was happening, and I felt the swap happening. I knew it was going to be good. So I appreciate you so much. All of Jermaine's social media is listed on the bottom of the screen. Make sure y'all go and follow him on Instagram. Make sure you follow the podcast. Make sure you listen, of course. And by all means, please join me next week as we continue to find the good in life's transitions.